What's going on, everyone? Bryce Gelman here today to discuss a few things regarding the Knicks and, to get into a pretty frustrating dilemma that I think a lot of us are facing right now as Knicks fans watching this team show up each game as a different team. It isn't much that we've seen from game to game that has carried over in the way that we have expected from these Knicks under Tom Thibodeau, specifically on the defensive end. And I wanted to just read some stats out to set the scene for all of you. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've been watching these games, but there are some things that kind of pop out. And the idea that the Knicks starters, which I'm going to get into a little bit later, but I wanted to just to set the scene to discuss this because this is as frustrating a team that I have watched in my entire life, and it's the best team that I have seen among all the sports teams that I've ever rooted for. The Giants won 2 Super Bowls. The Giants were never expected to do what the Knicks have been expected to do this year, which is win an NBA championship. The Giants are playing at the house money. That's a different story. The Knicks have these championship expectations, which is why I think it's so frustrating to watch this team on a nightly basis. Why this team isn't as lovable as the team last year and previous teams before this one. But listen, the Knicks had that 9-game win streak in December before the loss to the Thunder. And then they've kind of started off this just terrible month of January in which you could reasonably make the argument of, are these guys, the Knicks starters, the guys who are playing as many minutes as anyone else in the NBA, are they starting to be impacted by fatigue? Is the fatigue starting to set in? It's a good question. It's a great question. One that I think is as clear as day. Yes, of course. Of course, these guys aren't who they were earlier on in the season because they have played so much. All 5 of the Knicks starters are now in the top 10 in minutes played in the entire NBA. Hart, I think it's Bridges, OG, Hart are the top 3 in the NBA. Brunson at 6. And then now Cat, after he played 43 minutes last night, is now number 10. This is just unsustainable. It is. And I understand why it's happening. I understand the need to play these Knicks starters as much as they are playing. The Knicks don't have anyone on the bench. They have no one. And again, I want to get into this a little bit later. I don't want to make this a whole minutes police argument. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it yet. Just yet. But there are some stats otherwise, because the idea that the Knicks are a completely different team defensively than they were last year is honestly untrue. It's simply untrue. The Knicks last year ranked 10th in defensive rating. The Knicks this year are 15th. The Knicks have a better defensive rating than they did last year. How crazy is that? The Knicks are 112.7, which is, again, middle of the pack, 15th in the NBA. The Knicks last year, 113.4. And if you don't understand defensive rating, the lower the better. So now answer me. Now just indulge me in this conversation of the Knicks. The reason why the Knicks are so hard to watch is they're not as good of a defensive team. Well, the stats don't really tell that story. Because, and here's the thing, the Knicks show up as a different team each game. They played some really good games defensively this year. Some really good games. And then they play a game like they did last night, in which they don't know when to switch. They're going over screens when they should be going under them. They're miscommunicating down the stretch. And they lose a game in which they should never have lost. And then watch this. The Knicks will play Philly. And the Knicks will play one of the best defensive games they played all year. And that's no guarantee. Specifically in this month of January, in which the Knicks, they don't look too good. They don't look too hot. And I think this is all coming to a head because the minutes police argument. Arguing with fans on Twitter. I've seen it way too much. I think fans agree on this more than they are willing to admit. Because, listen, here's the thing. You can make the argument that the Knicks starters are playing too much. It's objectively true. It's absolutely a concern. But you know what's more concerning? that the Knicks only have 2 guys on the bench who can come in and score. They do not have a backup wing who is considered 3 and D in the league. And Precious Achiuwa, guys, Precious Achiuwa is not the player that he was last year. So this is what the Knicks have to deal with. This is the personnel that the Knicks have this year. They went all in to assemble the best starting lineup in the NBA. One of the best starting lineups we've seen in NBA history. I'm willing to go to that. I'm willing to say that. The amount of talent in that starting lineup, it's no wonder why they play so much. I don't think this is a Tom Thibodeau thing. Yes, there are some games in which Tom Thibodeau is way too reluctant to pull the starters when the game is very obviously over. That's a valid argument. But to say that a Steve Kerr, a Greg Popovich, an Eric Spoelstra wouldn't also play these starters as much as they're playing, considering the bench they have, is asinine. It is. There's just no other team with as bad of a bench as the Knicks do. And it's very interesting considering who this Knicks team has been in the past, what their identity has been. And it has been, we have a better bench unit than you. Our starters will still play a lot because Tom Thibodeau is going to play the starters a lot. But we still have a better bench than you. They will come in and run you out of the building. When the Knicks traded away Emmanuel quickly, that kind of changed. Even though last year, at the end of the year, depth wasn't an issue. They made a very stupid decision trading Quentin Grimes for Bojan Bogdanovic and for Alec Burks. And, at the end of the day, did it help them get Mikal Bridges because the salaries matched up? Yes. Yes, it did. But did the Knicks sacrifice significantly in terms of depth by making a short-sighted move like that? Also, yes. 2 things could be true at once. I have been as critical of Tom Thibodeau in the past as anyone else. But at the same time, I'm also willing to admit that he is one of the best head coaches in the NBA in the 21st century. The guy is a defensive genius. He's a guru. This team is not playing like a Tom Thibodeau team. And you want to know why? You want to know why? You want to know at the bottom of this issue is these guys are just fatigued. It's hard to go out and play with the same intensity on a night-by-night basis when you are playing the most minutes of any guy in the league. And I want to single out OG Anunoby because if you remember earlier on in the year, he was an all-star. Like he was playing like he should have been an all-star. In the month of November, 62% true shooting percentage. Shot 40% from deep while providing some of the best perimeter defense, arguably the best perimeter defense in the NBA. You want to know what he did in December? 53% true shooting percentage. 53. 31% from deep. This month as well, also 31% from 3. He's almost 10 points down in 3-point percentage from November to December and now January. And you can't blame the guy. You can't get on him and be like, oh, you got to play better. You got to use your legs more in your shot. This is the most amount of minutes per game that OG Anunoby has played since 2021, 2022. A season in which OG Anunoby barely played more than half the games in that season. Tom Thibodeau is asking a lot of OG Anunoby, of Mikal Bridges, of Josh Hart, of Brunson, of Cat. What's the alternative? You saw what happened in the Raptors game. Knicks up by 25, 30 points. Few minutes remaining. Tom Thibodeau finally pulls the starters. The bench comes in, puts up an absolute goose egg, lays a goose egg. I think Tyler Kolek finished with like a negative 13 in like 3 minutes. This is how bad the Knicks bench is. And it wasn't like that came against the Raptors starters. It came against the Raptors bench as well. The Knicks have a generationally bad second unit. And their defense and their consistency is struggling as a result. And it's like, all right, well, where's this team go, going forward? And I look at a team like the Thunder, who, listen, I don't think the Knicks even win a game. If somehow miraculously at this point they made the NBA Finals and they matched up against the Thunder, it will be the Thunder. The Thunder will win the championship. But if the Knicks miraculously make it to the Finals for the first time since 1999 and match up against the Thunder, the Knicks would get swept. They are nowhere near on the level that the Thunder are. That is why people are so frustrated and annoyed. What was sold to you before the season with this team? They can win a championship. That is what the front office told you when they went out and they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. We are going all in. We think the roster as it stands for the next 3 to 4 years will be competing for championships. And what we've seen on a night-by-night basis is not championship effort. And you can't blame the team. You can't blame these guys who barely have any time to sit. And I understand the Knicks aren't a team that practices really. And this has been said by multiple members of the Knicks media. They barely practice because of how much they play on game day. But man, it's frustrating. It is. I understand where a lot of Knicks fans are coming from. I do. And from what I've seen as it stands with this current roster, this team ain't winning you know what. They are not winning a thing. They're not getting past Cleveland. They probably wouldn't get past Boston. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? At best, a conference finals appearance? Is that going to do it for you? Is that going to make you feel good about this season as a Knicks fan? For me, it wouldn't. It wouldn't, even though it would be the first time the Knicks made the conference finals since 2000. It's been 25 years. At that point, it would be 25 years since the Knicks made a conference finals with an actual opportunity to make the finals. So, yeah, cool, great, awesome. But when you look at the talent the Knicks have in that starting lineup, that is simply not good enough. When you look at the picks the Knicks gave up to get Mikal Bridges, when you look at what they gave up to get Karl-Anthony Towns, it's not good enough. That is why fans are so pissed. That is why. And I hear you. I hear you. I am on the same page as you. If you're just joining now, I'm Bryce Gelman talking about the Knicks. This frustrating loss last night to the Pistons, who I'm not trying to undersell how good they have been this year. Props to them. They look like a completely different team under JB Bickerstaff. Monty Williams is somewhere on a beach. I don't know if he's ever going to get another coaching opportunity in the NBA. He obviously didn't want to be in Detroit. I think he's actually coaching his son, so I take that back. He's not on the beach, but he will be when his son graduates high school because he's not coaching another team, specifically as head coach. But I digress. Listen, the Knicks' lack of depth at wing and in their front court is just hampering the rest of the team because it forces OG Anunoby to play big minutes at the 4. He's a 3. I mean, listen, he can match up against any 4 in the NBA. Fine, I understand that. But by playing OG Anunoby at the 4 and with Precious Achiuwa being the backup center, not the backup 4, Mitchell Robinson, you have him. Precious becomes the backup 4. Mitch becomes the center, and you can play Cat at the 4 alongside Mitchell Robinson. With playing OG Anunoby 35, 36 minutes a game at the 4, you are also forced to play Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart as many minutes as they do. And you can't allocate your minutes in a way that would help these guys not die on the court each night. That's just not the reality that we live in with this Knicks team. It sucks that Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges are playing as much as they are. It sucks that OG Anunoby is playing the most minutes he's played per game in a season since 2021, 2022. It's just our reality. It's just the world that we live in as Knicks fans. It sucks. It does. It's terrible. But it begs the question, what the hell are the Knicks going to do? What is the alternative? Who are they going to be able to go out and trade for? Because any trade they make, unfortunately, is going to involve Deuce McBride. And it's going to involve Mitchell Robinson because the Knicks cannot receive any more money than they give out. Mitch is gone. Deuce is gone. Kolek's gone. The Wizards' first round protected pick is gone. What the hell are you going to do? What are you going to do? The Knicks have no wing depth. They barely have any front court depth. And Tom Thibodeau, based on what we've seen, I don't think that this is an unfair assessment of what he has on the bench. He is reluctant, as he always has been in his career as a head coach, to play younger, unproven guys. Just look how long it took Deuce McBride to become a staple in the rotation. It took the Knicks trading away Emmanuel quickly for him to get any minutes, any reasonable minutes in a game. And I think I don't think I'm speaking for myself here and saying that I saw the vision with Deuce McBride. I saw him getting sent down to the G League and putting up 35 points like it was nothing. He was barely playing. So, listen, and I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm not saying, I'm going to knock on wood here. I think it would be very, very fortunate the Knicks do not suffer an injury among their starters the rest of the year. Like, odds are it's going to happen. And what's going to happen then? Who does Tom Thibodeau trust on that bench to play big minutes in place in place of whoever gets hurt? Because again, it would just be an anomaly that none of those Knicks starters playing the minutes that they are do not get hurt this season. You saw Cat out for a few games. The Knicks did not look good. They just rely on these guys way too much. That's another concern for me. It's another concern. Like, it's not sustainable. None of this is. None of it is. And you just pray and you hope that these Knicks stay healthy. And they stay as a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. Again, this is what comes with high expectation, the frustration. All of us Knicks fans wanted to be out of the hellhole that we were in following the 2012-2013 season, in which the Knicks sucked year after year after year after year until the Knicks started playing with house money in 2020, 2021. And even then, that was a frustrating loss. But it was like, okay, we experienced for the first time, in 9 years, some prosperity, some success. And that Knicks team had an identity. The Knicks team last year had an identity. This team doesn't. It really doesn't. They need a scrappy wing off the bench. They need Mitchell Robinson to come back and be Mitchell Robinson. I say it every damn time I talk about the Knicks. That if the Knicks continue to play at the level they're playing right now, they won't win anything. The one catalyst, the one big X factor in all of this is who the hell Mitchell Robinson is when he comes back. Whenever he comes back. Is he going to be a shell of himself because both of his ankles are hurt? I don't know. Will Tom Thibodeau be comfortable playing him 20-plus minutes a game? I don't know. Will Tom Thibodeau experiment with playing him at the 5 and Karl-Anthony Towns at the 4? I don't know. These are all questions that have yet to be answered. So when you look at what OG Anunoby has done since the month of November, when you look at the minutes that all of these guys are playing, keep in mind one thing. All rest on Mitch Robinson's shoulders, because the Knicks are not going to be trading him before the deadline with his hero value that he has, because he won't be back before the deadline. They, I'm sure, really wanted to get him back for at least a month to see what they had with him so they could either flip him or hold on to him because he fundamentally changes how good the team is. They won't get that. Unfortunately, they will not. So you got to see what we have with Mitchell Robinson. It's that simple, and it sucks. It does. I love Mitch. I think with him on the court, the Knicks become a defensive juggernaut. Isaiah Hartenstein was a good backup. He was. He ended up being a much better offensive threat. The dribble handoffs were lethal. He had a floater. He had some offensive game. Mitch has none. But the Knicks defense with Mitchell Robinson on the court, first when Isaiah Hartenstein was on the court, completely different ballgame. Rebounding, listen, I understand that Mitchell Robinson, one of the best offensive rebounders that we've ever seen in the game. Unbelievable. Hartenstein was just as good. But again, defensively, with Mitch's reach, with his paint protection, the Knicks were a defensive juggernaut. And how amazing was it to have both those guys in the rotation? To go from that to what the Knicks have now? Offensively, Cat has all the abilities of Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson on that end combined, plus more. Defensively, I don't know about that. All right, this is going to be a quick thing. I just wanted to get my thoughts out on this. Something coming for you all on Thursday with a prominent name in the Knicks community, potentially. I'm working on it. He gets a lot of hate out there, and he's going to have a chance to sit down with me and discuss all that. And of course, what we've been discussing here and what we will be continuing to discuss going forward, because I just don't foresee anything changing unless the Knicks make a move. And to make a move, it's going to be tough with these new CBA rules. It's difficult. So it remains to be seen what they do. It remains to be seen what the hell is going on with Mitchell Robinson. If he comes back or not, we don't know. We will find out, and we will talk about it. We will continue this discussion on the Knicks for the rest of the season. So what the hell else is there to do? I'm Bryce Gelman, and I'll talk to you all later this week. See ya.